Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by AndyMark. Are you competition ready? Go to andymark.com and keep your team inspired. And by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived FIRST Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by Twitch. Fun is now a Twitch partner and offering some awesome subscriber-only benefits. Subscribe today or get a free subscription each month when you have Amazon Prime by linking your account and clicking subscribe.
Shut up and sit down.
Tonight on Candidly Speaking, we are not holding back on our impressions of First Power-Up, including game pieces costing teams $70 in Israel and the price in other countries. We're going to talk about the viability of ramps and lifts. We're going to talk about unbalanced or unfair plate assignments. And we're going to talk about robot in 3 days and minimum competitive concept robots. Speaking my mind for First Updates Now, I'm Libby Kamen-Drost.
And I'm Karthik, Kanagasabapathy. Our producer tonight is Tyler Olds. And join us, our special guest from Team 1619 Up Creek Robotics out of Colorado is Clint Ott. Hey, Clint, how you doing, man?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So if anyone has any questions you'd like us to take care of during the show, we're happy to interact with you. So just make sure you post them in the chat and tag First Updates Now so we can find them.
So as we're going into week 2 of build season already, we've all had some time to process the power-up game. We have some specific subjects to touch coming up, such as game piece pricing, ramps, and lovely RNG. But let's take a few minutes to grab everyone's initial thoughts about the game so far. So Clint, we're going to start with you. What was your first reaction to power-up? Because you had a week working with 1619. What are you looking forward to so far, and what challenges do you see coming up?
Yeah, so just initially, I really liked the departure from the object-based scoring to more of the time-based scoring, holding an objective for length of time to generate score as opposed to just scoring one more game piece, one after the other. I think that'll open up a lot of kind of strategic plays throughout the season. I think we'll see the strategy evolve a lot because of that, as opposed to the last game, or the last few games where it's just been score more, faster. I was kind of sad to see yet another climbing game in terms of getting that end-game scoring. But thank God for the levitate power-up in case you didn't have a partner that would climb. Hopefully that'll cut down on some of the cheesecaking cost and effort that's been going down the last couple of years. Yeah, the other big thing that I think a lot of teams probably haven't even picked up on yet is we're going to see a lot more tipped-over robots than usual. This game looks like a flat-field game, but in reality, it's very not so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really to touch on that point about the tip robots is we've had so many games recently where robots really couldn't expand. And because of that, we haven't seen the robots toppling like they did in 2011, for example. When I look at this game, though, as soon as I saw it, I was like, hey, this is cool. But it's like, whoa, there's a lot to process here. There's a lot of different things going on. So I think there's cognitive overload. And I still don't think people have fully grasped the ramifications of some of the strategy game. And we're so used to traditional scoring. You put something in a space and then you get points for it at the end of the match. But here it's you put something at a place on the field, but you're also placing it on the timeline. And once it gets placed on the timeline, it starts earning points. And so there's all sorts of old paradigms that go away. Like I was having a conversation with someone the other day, about the value of climbing and hanging. They're like, oh, well, while you're climbing, at the end of the match, I'm just going to go flip your scale and switch, and then I'm going to get all those points. I'm like, what are you talking about? You flip the scale with 2 seconds left. You get yourself 2 points. Good for you, So it's a totally different paradigm than before, where if you were to flip ownership of something, there'd be a big swing. But the swings are based on how long you can hold things. So I think that, man, this is a drive coach's game. The drive coaches are going to have to be on top of things. The people who can figure this game out early have the most success. I think week 1 is going to be a disaster to be completely honest, because most teams aren't going to grasp this stuff, and it's going to take some time. But the teams who do come out in week one and really do understand this game, I think they're going to really be able to roll, especially if they have a simple bot. But overall, I like this game. I only have one caveat. I am terrified about the field and the sensors working. If they do, then this game is amazing. This is going to be probably the best game since 2013, maybe even since longer. But if, like, for example, like the sensors aren't working, like kind of like the boiler counters weren't working for a long time last year, then what happens? Because like last year, like if the boiler wasn't counting, you could count the balls in the bucket at the end. But here, you can't do anything. So there's a lot of risks there. But the good thing is, like, checking if the angle of a scale is super should be simple. It's a lot more simple than counting streams of balls coming through, a rotating device. So I think they're going to be able to get it right, but when it does go bad, it's going to go bad.
Yeah, it's a guaranteed replay, right?
Well, I think it's it's a guaranteed.
Right.
They probably
it should be a guaranteed replay. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah, I think that's far more accurate. Is that it should be.
We have to stay on schedule. We have to stay on schedule.
All right, Mr. FTA.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, Libby.
I think you really nailed it. And when you said, "Hey, it's it's a drive coach's game," I'm excited. As drive coach for 1923, I'm like, "Yes, this is going to be amazing." And then I remember that we're playing week one, and then I'm less excited, just a little bit less excited. I think it's going to be so different. There's going to be such a different dynamic in match play that I'm really excited for. What I'm not super excited for is that early play, first couple of matches, maybe even your first entire event, where there's going to be a huge gap between teams who have read the manual and teams who have not fully read the manual.
Well, they have to be a thinker. And what's really interesting is if you're a team who's going to be dependent on the portal, so you have to make a choice. Do you put your human player in a portal, or do you put your human player back there for the vault? And it's the first time in a long time where there's been like two coveted human player positions. And so like that's going to be interesting one for some. So yeah, there's a lot of strategy, and I really hope that anyone who has questions about the strategies in this game, toss them in the chat. We bucketed a lot of time for the show for us to deal with Q&A. We got some good questions on Jeep, so we can have a good discussion there, because there's obviously a lot we can talk about when it comes to the game.
Yeah, so along the lines of the kind of that human player control in the vault, do you guys think that you'll task a coach specifically with kind of tracking that human player, telling him when to play the power-ups, or do you think you kind of let him run on his own?
So I don't like pulling pulling coaches away from their robots, usually, because I think that's where they need to be advising their drivers. So hopefully there's one human player on the Alliance who could figure it all out. Like, I know, if I was like running a team, I would just be drilling the human player repeatedly on vault and on vault strategies and stuff. But I think there will be cases where if you don't have a human player that you can trust, that you do have to assign a coach to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you said about like really drilling the human player is where I think we're kind of going to go with it. It's it's a different but kind of similar version to, like, you have to trust last year. You had to trust your pilot. You had to know they were going to do what the game said they were supposed to do. Obviously, there's way more moving parts right now, but you have to kind of make sure that person is a member of the team who can think strategically, and that may mean extra sit down with the coach over what's going on, because I completely agree. Like, coach needs to be in their own station with their team and their robot, making calls back and forth. But I think the human player should be someone you can absolutely trust in that situation. But maybe they also have, like, something we've discussed already on our team is a cheat sheet, like a little arm, like some refs wear all the penalties and like a little sleeve thing on their arm, doing that with like a cheat sheet about, in this condition, what do I do? And just so that they don't freak out, panic. These are high school students after all. Having that kind of reference point of, in this situation, what should I potentially play? So that's kind of what we're thinking towards for our human players, so that they can operate on their own as much as they can.
All right, so we've talked a lot about Power Up. We're going to deal a lot more with specific stuff during the Q&A, but there are a few topics that we want to address. And one of them, so I was on Chief yesterday, and I came across this thread started by Team 5951, Makers Assemble out of Israel, talking about how the Power Cube costs $70 purchase in Israel. That is, I mean, you can like what I think at the registration for an FPC team is like 200. Vex teams 200, like $70 for a Power Cube. That is crazy. I know in past shows we've discussed game piece options that are available for international teams, and this year, international teams could spend 200 credits to get one game piece. A game piece which sells for $17 in the US. But now on First Choice, you just pay 10 credits. So international teams were paying a 2,000% markup of First Choice credits to get this game piece, which also doesn't sound that bad. Like, I totally understand that game pieces, like, these are big and you have to ship them and there's shipping costs and someone has to absorb those costs. I understand that's probably not going to be the reseller, but I hate to see it being the team. But before we talk about it more, we want to get an insider's perspective. So we have Ranan, who's the former member of First Israel. He was the former First Israel FRC program manager, and he's a current mentor for Team 5951. And he really wanted to come on the show and talk about it. It is 4 a.m. local time, but that's how much he cares about this issue. So welcome, Ranan. So, Ranan, we know you're passionate about this subject. Can you please tell us about your perspective and how you feel and what this issue means to Israeli teams?
Okay, so we might need to make sure that we have Ranan unmuted. I'm super impressed that he's coming on at 4 o'clock in the morning local time at all. So thank you for being with us.
You might have fallen asleep, guys.
While we wait for Ranan, let's just to get himself set up. Clint, what do you have to say about all of this?
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, right? I mean, it's sorry, pardon my French. It's a friggin' milk crate, right? With a nylon cover over it. Why are they paying $70 for a milk crate with a piece of fabric? It seems like First dropped the ball on this one. At the very least, they could have found an international, like a European source for milk crates. I don't know. Do they not have milk in Europe? I'm not quite sure. It seems dumb that a team should have to spend $70 for a piece of plastic and a piece of fabric. I just don't get it.
No, I'm with you. I think what's really strange to me and what has never made sense to me is that, like, First knows what the game pieces are going to be. They have to create or buy or whatever, or hoard enough of these game pieces to fill all the fields they're going to ship out. What is not occurring to First to
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
I think we can hear you. Ranan's here.
Welcome.
I'll
There we
continue
go.
my point in a moment. We'll let Ranan talk.
Sorry,
So,
Libby.
no, totally. We want to hear your perspective, so fill us in.
Okay, so yesterday I went on some sort of rant actually on Chief Delphi, and I followed up with an email I also sent First. The point is, I wanted to bring up awareness to what international teams are facing, well, basically since forever. It costs a lot to be part of FRC outside of the US. It costs a lot to be part of FRC inside the US as well. And we are aware that it costs the price of doing business in Israel, and I'm sure any other countries, at least another 50% more for every product we want to buy. And it takes about a week for us to get it. And we're fine with that. That's part of where we live and what we're part of. But this year, the big thing was because of the volume of the cubes, shipping them to Israel, getting them through customs costs, like Karthik said before, almost the price of registration for a FTC team. And I'm sure, like, I'm representing Israel here, but I'm sure there's an issue with Australia, China, Turkey, or any other international team that's competing this year. The issue is not the price or the fact that we have to pay more. I think it's the awareness within First, where these are easy, like, things to solve. Like, anyone can, if they would have reached out to FIRST in Israel or any other organization running FIRST in that country. Easily, they could have either shipped the crates, the cubes in advance to their headquarters and have them sell them locally. They could have had foldable cubes. We found foldable cubes you can buy online for half the price. And it basically comes down to FIRST needs to be aware. And when designing a game, they have to keep international teams in mind. And this year is like one example out of many that we have. Like it's the recycle bins in 2015 that weren't available, not even an Andy Mark to sell, or the pegs from last year where McMaster wouldn't ship internationally. So we had to, like in both of these situations, Andy Mark, we contacted them and they bought them for us and then shipped them for us. Shout out to Andy Mark, who are big supporters of FIRST in Israel and been helping us for years, and I'm sure they're doing that for anyone else. So that's it. So it's basically a rant saying, like, wake up. There are hundreds of teams now outside of the US, and we need to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you're passionate about this issue, Renan. You totally have every right to be. I mean, coming from an international region myself, especially in the early years for us, I think it's different for Canada now because I think we do kind of get put under the US's umbrella. But it's easy to feel ignored by FIRST, and that was the common sentiment amongst Canadians 2002 to 2005. That it just felt like we were never considered. And it goes back to the whole thing about people referring to the World Championship as nationals. And the amount of people that congratulated 11, 14, and 2012 on winning the National Chairman's Award. It's like, dude, we've been winning the National Chairman's Award for years in Canada. So this is the international one. So, Renan, we really want to thank you for coming on so early in the morning to talk about this issue, and hopefully, this brought some awareness to the issues that our international teams face, especially our friends in Israel. I mean, Israel's produced some of the best robots in the world the last couple of years, and it's crazy how competitive you guys can be in spite of the overwhelming obstacles you face.
So, thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on, and we're going to keep talking about this issue now. And so I understand, I used to work for Vex running the Canadian division, so I understand what is involved with getting things across borders, and I understand that there's costs associated with it. But I think Renan really hit the point. When you're designing a game, so you come up with a milk crate as a game object, which sounds super cool, and it's like, oh yeah. And think about it, it's going to save teams money because a lot of teams won't even need to buy the milk crates. They can just buy the covers and they'll find the milk crates around their schools and whatever. But then that warning bell's got to go off in your head. Hey, are milk crates the same everywhere in the world? For example, they're very standardized in the US. They're pretty much standardized in Canada, not fully. I have an anecdote I'll tell later. I don't want to distract from that. But they have milk crates in China, in Australia, Israel. Or are those milk crates 13 by 13 by 11? Because say they're 13 by 12 by 11, that makes a huge freaking difference in how you're going to design things. And for the cost, I understand things cost money, and these shipping costs and border costs, someone has to pay for them. But it would be nice maybe if instead of having the Israeli teams have to subsidize each crate by $53, maybe there was, an organization that had a bank that could subsidize the cost of these crates somewhat, and I really appreciate resellers like Andy Mark going out of their way to help these Israeli teams out. The resellers and the suppliers have done a lot over the years to try and help international, but I mean, FIRST as a whole has to do more in these situations. And if you are going to design a game piece that is really, really expensive to ship, have procedures in place. I don't have a good solution for this. This is a hard problem because, the other thing you have to think about is, there's 3,500 teams in the U.S. or something or whatever it is who love that it's a milk crate. They can get them easily, and it's trade-offs. But it shouldn't be viewed as a pure, oh well, there's more teams here, so this is a good solution. If we care about turning FIRST into a truly global program, and we care about treating everyone equally and everyone up, we have to work to find solutions to promote true equity. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Karthik. Part of me thinks that FIRST was maybe hoping international teams would find an alternative to the crate, make them out of, plywood, whatever. I looked at the numbers earlier. If you make it out of like 1/4-inch birch, it ends up being pretty similar in weight for the same size cube, but you don't get the exact game piece you're planning on playing with, week one. I don't know. I think they dropped the ball 100%. I think there's a lot of things they could have done, but right now, I mean, it looks like it's pretty late in the game to make anything happen for this.
And I won't say I think they dropped the ball 100% because, growing a program globally is a huge challenge. And, I think they designed a great game, and I think the Milk Crate is a great game piece, actually. I just think there's a lot of cool things about it. But, like Renan said, I don't think anyone's angry necessarily at first, but it's just like, hey, can you just try and think of these little things? And like, Clint just said, if you could have a substitute like made out of birch, it would be cool if they put the drawings up there and says, hey, if you can't get milk crates, here's what you should build, and this will give you a replica. Spend some real time on that. And so hopefully going forward, we had a couple suggestions in the chat. Piers Klein says, since Israel has its own field this season, FIRST should allow teams to use field game pieces. This is FIRST problem, not the teams. That would be cool. Maybe run a loaner system. Say, hey, we're going to loan you these crates. Don't loan them the covers because you want the covers to be brand new and pristine, at the event. But say, hey, you can get the covers locally, you can ship them easier, but every team gets a couple extra crates. That's one solution. Azatoth __ says, this international game piece issue, is it better or worse than lunacy balls? It is, at least there's an option to buy the game piece for $70. In 2009 for lunacy, you
were just shit out of luck, right? You're just done, right? There's no possible way to get the 2009 game piece without like riveting your own polycarb straps together.
Right. Libby, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, thank you. Let's see if we can make one Candidly Speaking episode where I don't go last on every question. But there actually, OMG Robots 1 brought a point up in chat that I want to bring to the table as well. Is I feel like FIRST should be able to say, let's ship 401 bucks, oh god, chat scrolled, to FIRST in Israel before the kickoff, and then they can split up that shipping cost amongst the teams. Spend some more time. It says use ocean shipping instead of air shipping. It doesn't have to get there urgently, but ship it ahead of time. And that was kind of where the beginning of my rant was going before Renan joined us, was I really don't see why if FIRST knows they have to get a certain amount of game pieces for their fields, that they can't get more. There was a question about making a huge rise in cost for domestic teams, but they can't do exactly that. Send things to the regions they know game pieces are going to be a problem. And, even if they don't, if they got here this week rather than the day of kickoff, I still think teams would be happier than if they had to pay $70 a piece. I really don't see why this isn't something, and maybe I'm just blind to it because I don't do as much event work anymore as much as just my team, but this is really something FIRST and the individual international region RDs should be working together on. It just doesn't make sense to me that this is every single year we come back to the problem of international teams not being able to get their game pieces or having to pay a stupid amount of money. And to your point, Karthik, about the drawings, the drawings for the field aren't actually the field. It's not a Candidly Speaking topic for tonight, at least not this moment. But I don't really trust a drawing that says if you make a 13 by 13 by 11 thing out of birch, that it'll be the same, because the drawing will say it's 14 inches by 2. It's wild to me that we can't make this work for game pieces, but I also don't necessarily think that a drawing of a duplicate would necessarily be accurate.
So
that's all I meant.
One last thing I just want to throw on there is that I don't think people fully grasp how expensive international shipping is. Sometimes, I remember 11-14 years ago, when we did beta testing for FIRST, and we somehow got dinged for the shipping of the customs of bringing the beta kit across the border, and it was $1,000. like just U.S., Canada. So like there's brokerage involved in there, which is the labor fee, and so these costs skyrocket. When 1114 got sheet metal from IFI, it was a huge donation from IFI, but the biggest part of that donation was the shipping, which was costing thousands of dollars a year for IFI to ship that sheet metal across to us. So like a lot of people are probably saying, how does this crate cost $70? International shipping, especially air shipping, is done by volume, and since the crate is a lot of volume, it is a huge cost. So let's move on.
Yeah, I do think we should move on just so we can kind of cover everything. I think, at least I can speak for myself, some of the hosts we usually stick around and chat on other topics at another point in the show. But let's move on to the specific dynamics of the power-up game. A popular concept for many teams is to bring back the 2007 method of lifting other robots in the air to achieve the climb points. This strategy was confirmed in the Q&A on Q7 and some others that as long as a robot is not in direct contact with their platform, it is possible for a robot to still meet the requirement for climbing while transitively contacting the platform, assuming all of the other requirements like not using pistons to shoot your own robot into the air. Which I have to say, I love the shade that was like, we thought that was obvious, but we had to write another rule. Like that's, the sass is perfect for me. But anyway, let's talk about ramps and lifts. Clint, we'll let you start as our guest. What do you think the viability is of the ramps and the lifts in Power Up, and what are 1619's thoughts on the strategy if you're willing to lend them to the discussion?
So first of all, I want to know how many Q&As will be posted about jacking your own robot in the air 12 inches before the end of the season. It's absolutely ridiculous, guys. Just read the freaking Q&A before you post a question. Like, come on. Like, what is there? I think there's like 15 posts about jacking yourself up. All right, on to ramps, platforms, lifts. I'm sorry, I had to vent about teams posting Q&As. It's just as it drives me nuts. I want to see good posts on Q&A, and every time I log in, it's just, can I jack myself up 12 inches? No. All right. Yeah, sorry. Ramps, they're definitely possible. It's, 2007, you saw exactly the same thing. My biggest, I guess, and this is more of a personal feeling necessarily than maybe my whole team's thoughts, but you're essentially spending in-game resources. If you decide to lift two partners up, and I'm guessing the goal is to get 3 robots climbed by the end of the match in order to generate that RP, right? That's what we're all looking at getting climbing for, right? Is to get the extra RP. So if you spend time in the match to send 3 cubes back into the vault for the levitate, but then at the end of the match, you have to still pull all 3 of your robots onto the platform to lift. I just don't necessarily see that as a valuable application of resources. However, with the size of the room, the size of the tower, all that stuff, it's definitely going to be very difficult to get 3 robots up in a way that's not that. So I'm not exactly sure how this is going to go. Maybe someone will come out with a super clean ramp idea that's super easy to use, that lets them do it in 5 seconds right at the end of the match, but it'll be very surprising to me. If you look back at matches in 2007, and I wasn't around in 2007, so I wasn't there living it, but I've seen matches. It looked like lineup was very difficult, and a lot of times it didn't work out. You'd see robots dumped over off of ramps. All of that stuff would happen. And then most of the time you were climbing from 10 feet away from your driver's station, right? With perfect line of sight to the ramp, easy lineups, etc. This year, you're 20 feet away, you're on an elevated platform, and if teams aren't designing their ramps and platforms correctly, you're coming in from the side, and just the ability to line up that way, that far away, just is very difficult. I think teams are going to have a lot of trouble just lining up to a ramp, even if it matches all the current field dimensions, that 15.3 degree angle that the current platform is built at. I just think teams are going to have a hell of a time lining up with ramps. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think you're spot on. I mean, as soon as the game comes out and we see the bar size, I am going to be super surprised if I ever see, at least in my region, a triple climb at higher levels of play. I think that's so unlikely given how little real estate there is up there, which it seems quite honestly, like, this is what FIRST wants. They want to see the 2007 style lift. But one of the things that, as we talk on 1923 about this strategy, is what attribute if we were to do this, what would that ramp have to be? And the attribute that we think of is idiot proof. And that sounds mean, but teams are not going to be able to get up on the platform because again, back to my drawing mini rant, the platform drawing is different than the actual platform. Teams are not going to get the same practice, and it's a different surface. It's all sorts of things. There's the teams that are not, they don't have the space, they don't have the resources to create a proper practice area are going to beach on the platform. They're not even going to make it up onto the ramp. I mean, think about in 2016 when all you had to do was park on this little strip, and there were still matches where coaches would be screaming down the line behind the glass, like, get on the platform. It is not that hard. It's just, I don't know that as much as this strategy is so cool and interesting, and I think it's going to be really impressive when it works well, I think there are going to be so many situations in which robots are not compatible with each other, and it's just going to be one ramp, one ramp bot sitting there waiting, and nobody joins them. And I don't think that will be great for anybody, for sure. I think in the video even that's showing up, you've got robots falling off of ramps sometimes, and I think it's going to be really, really cool, but really, really hard to make work. And I think a lot harder than teams are thinking it's going to be. Karthik, your thoughts?
So, I mean, first of all, I think the challenge is cool. And I think, I agree that actually getting 3 robots doing conventional hangs from the bar is super, super hard. And, ramps or lifting is going to be the way to do it. But I do want to think back to 2007 because FIRST teams in general are not good at evaluating their own abilities, but FIRST teams are also not good at evaluating past games. As we get further and further away from past games, we have a tendency to have rose-colored glasses on, and we just assume robots were better than they were. So, and I'm guilty of this too. I went back to the 1114 scouting database from 2007 and looked at the rate of ramping and lifting to 12 inches. So, you had a possibility of lifting 2 robots on each alliance. So if you look at all the possibilities for lifts at the championship during qualifying on the Curie division, only 15.2% of those possibilities were filled. And it was mostly by teams who actually couldn't do anything else other than ramp. They were purely ramps and were not very good at scoring. So if we look at teams who could score 2 tubes a match, put 2 tubes on the rack, and could ever lifted 2 robots to 12 inches, there was only 3 teams that did that of the 36 who could score 2 tubes. This is really, really hard stuff. Now I get it, like the games have changed. 2000 robots are much better now because of the COTS revolution, and this is more incentivized this year because of the ranking points. But for teams who think this stuff is going to be easy, it's just not going to be. That's not a thing. It's hugely valuable and it's going to be important. It's kind of like fuel last year, where very few teams were able to do it. Lots of teams tried and were terrible at it, and lots of teams sacrificed their ability to score gears because they tried to do fuel. But the ones who did do fuel well, they were all over both Einsteins. That's the core of what it came down to. So teams who can do this well are going to get a huge, huge payoff, but it's really, really hard. And we're going to talk more about this when we get to the RI3D and the MTCs. But this is not as simple as just sticking a couple pieces of wood out there and figuring these robots will get up. It's going to be hard enough for 3 robots to fit on the basic platform as is. Trying to get 2 robots elevated on that thing, all I'm saying is it's hard. Teams, and there's gonna be a lot of teams who hear this yeah, he's totally right. It's so hard. Those teams shouldn't try it. I'm like, no, I'm talking to you. Your team sucks. It's just this one thing that people don't get. Last year, it was the same thing with fuel, where I was like, fuel's so hard. They're like, yeah, fuel's so hard, man. These teams are gonna be terrible at it. man, like it's like that whole like George Carlin thing, like, you know, look to your left, you look to the right, you know, like 50% the dumbest person, 50% blah blah blah. Like people don't realize that half the teams are below average in first, and you know, like even our above average teams are going to be bad at this. This is like a top 10% sort of deal, you know. So it is a huge challenge, but it's going to be so cool when it gets pulled off. And you know, there's going to be some team like we're playing the video of 1717 lifting over and over again, and they were so awesome at it. There's going to be someone who just nails that, you know, like 118 or 254 or something, and that's just going to be super awesome. So another topic that we have that was up on Chief, and it was discussed at length, and I mean like literally some of the longest and most meandering posts in Chief Delphi history were dedicated to this topic, is the unbalanced plate assignment. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the plates on the scales and switches are randomized for each match. So since there's 3 pairs that are being randomized, there's 8 possible arrangements of where red and blue could go. 4 of those arrangements are symmetric with respect to the alliances, which means that both red and blue would have the exact same travel times if you draw paths between their plates. 4 of them are unbalanced, meaning that the travel times or the distance is different. As such, there's some discussion as to whether or not this is fair, whether or not it's a good game design practice, or if it even matters at all, because some say it just kind of goes out in the wash. So, Clint, what are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, last year we had a field that wasn't rotationally symmetric, right? You know, the Blue Alliance was, you know, turning to a different side than the Red Alliance to get to their protected feeder station. Yeah, I get that. But this is such an easy win for the GDC, right? Change it, eliminate all the potential RNG bias, and move on. If you've ever wanted to get buy-in from your community, this is the place to do it. I can't imagine that there's too many people out there who are going to be vehemently opposed to eliminating an asymmetric field. There are going to be people who are vehemently opposed to having RNG being a significant factor in the match, right? It just makes no sense. It's a problem. They need to fix it. If they don't fix it soon, I think it's only going to get worse. And there's no downside to getting rid of the asymmetry. There's huge upside. I say do it, get it over with in tomorrow's team update, and we'll all move on.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know that I have any sort of addition or counter to that. I think the only thing is you're saying, oh, well, no one's going to be opposed. Based on that Chief thread, there are people who are totally okay with, oh, it's just part of the game. Like, speaking of teams that don't realize that 50% of teams are below average, I need to go back and look at that thread and see how that lines up with the, oh, it's just part of the game, it'll be fine. I really don't think that going down to 4 random options is killing the idea of having a random option at the beginning. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that the asymmetrical thing came across as okay. To me, it's just going to widen the gap between teams that are able to account for that and teams that can't. I mean, the greatest teams in the world already have a plan for every single one of the 8 possible arrangements, you know? And the teams who don't, that's who they're going to beat in the finals when RNG goes their way. You know, it's like, there's no reason for 4 random options to somehow be a disadvantage. I don't understand where it came into the game. I don't know why it's still here. Having it be like the different mirrored options makes so much sense to me, and I would really like for that to get fixed. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's a question from the chat, and for people who, for me, for example, I have no idea what RNG is.
Oh, sorry,
Shut up, Karthik. You know what RNG is.
I have no idea what.
Shut up.
Random number generation.
Thank you.
So RNG. So the reason it's typically abbreviated RNG, random number generation. So basically, you're relying on a completely, this random assignment. In gaming, it is consider that before a match you pray to RN Jesus to make sure that you get the right rolls, the right items, the whatever it is. So there is some of that in in chat as well. There is no reason that our teams need to offer things up to RN Jesus before the match. Please just make it symmetrical. I don't have anything else. Candidly speaking, moving on to Karthik.
Well, today I learned RNG stands for random number generator. The short form that we used the math faculty at Waterloo was RAN-N, which is just what you would program like random. But that's
God, you're so
sure,
nerdy.
yeah.
You are so nerdy.
Dude, you guys are using a video game term, and you're shitting on me for not knowing what RNG is. Sorry, I'm not playing World of StarCraft or whatever.
I don't appreciate your attack on my lifestyle right now, and I would like you to get back on topic. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Libby. I'm sorry. Hashtag Team Kitty.
Yes.
I think Clint and Libby have said a lot about this. I prefer.
I'm just gonna say it the way I feel
like
it.
So first game matches have all sorts of randomness to them already. And we've accepted some of the randomness because of the benefits we get from it. For example, the alliance system. The alliance system is, it's a crapshoot. We've all come to accept it because the alliance system does such great things for our community. The concept of playing up with random teams, I lived in the pre-alliance world where teams didn't talk to each other at all. But because of the alliance world, there's this huge, tight-knit community. So we've accepted the randomness presented by that for this. We deal with things, and I haven't fully accepted this one, but like the serpentine draft, which just kind of like punish teams for doing well. And I've never really loved that sort of thing. But we've come to accept that because some people think that there's benefits in doing that. And so there's all sorts of randomness in these games. But I think where you can remove some of the randomness where there isn't what are we getting out of having these asymmetrical plate lineups? What is the derived utility of that? I don't really see what that is, so I don't see it being a big deal. I think everything else I would say would just kind of be harping on the points that have already been made by Libby and Clint. I do think, though, the GDC has seen this. They've seen the discussions on this. People have contacted them directly. And we had a team update on Friday where they didn't address it. I don't think it's being changed. Kind of come to accept it, but I am going to say this. One of the more powerful autonomous modes this year is going to be the team that goes scale switch or switch scale, i.e. putting on their switch and then on their scale. And when you have the asymmetric, the team who can do that in a straight line, the short straight line, well, everything's a straight line, but the team who can do that just by heading straight as opposed to having to go on the diagonal. If red has to go straight and blue has to go on the diagonal, red's going to be ahead in this. Mm-hmm. And that's just what's going to happen. So
and with the time-based scoring, that's a huge advantage.
Absolutely. And I think back to the 2014 championship, and this wasn't really part of the game. This was on 11-14. But when we put our goalie stick on the robot, we had to make a decision. We could put it in the center or we could bias it in one direction. And we biased it to the back because it just helped with the center of gravity. And on Einstein, everyone remembers the autonomous shootout. Well, maybe not everyone remembers, probably most. The autonomous showdown between 11-14 and 2:54. And we were able to block their shots once, but 3 times in a row, the Hawk goal went on the wrong side for us. So our goalie stick was further away. And if it had flipped the other direction, we probably blocked their shots all those matches, and we could have different world champions, and I'm not using that as an excuse or we made a decision that year to bias our robot. So that's totally on us. But I'm just saying it's an example of when you have these things that are based on a coin flip that give an advantage to one or the other that the teams have no control really over. It's like, ugh, it's a bummer. But at the end of the day, this is a big deal. I don't think it's the biggest deal that FIRST has ever had, and so we'll get through. But yeah, it'll have some sort of an impact, but I think the impact is going to be mainly restricted to very, very high-end matches. So I think it's something that we will forget about for a long time, and maybe we'll be remembering in Houston their Einstein.
100% agree.
Libby, you want to talk to us a little bit about our next topic of robots in 3 days?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to go into our last topic, which is covering robot in 3 days and minimum competitive concepts. But don't forget, if you would like us to address any topics or questions, make sure you tag at First Updates Now in the chat, and we'll take time for these after we get through the RA3D discussion. Obviously, if it's about RA3D or MCC, you're welcome to do it during our segment. But if you've got anything you want us to hold on to, that is where you will go. So what we're going to talk about today, and what I want to lay out is the disclaimer that we are not trying to trash on anybody's interpretation on what they should spend their first few days after kickoff doing. That's not the point of the show. But we want to talk about RA3D. We want to talk about minimum competitive concepts and what these different groups and videos and ideas are showing to the community and what we're putting forward. I really not sure where to start other than
Rant away, Libby. Rant away.
You want my mini rant first? Okay.
Yeah, do it.
So if you're not familiar with Robot in 3 Days or the MCC robots, what it is it's typically groups of mentors or alumni getting together to, right after kickoff, build a robot in a few days and try to demonstrate an intro level robot. And I think that's kind of cool. I think it's a really interesting set of resources for teams. I know that teams who don't have the resources to throw at the wall for prototyping, to waste parts or waste stuff, I actually find that can be a really cool set of resources for a team. But, and this is where my mini rant begins, why on earth are all their reveal videos if this is meant to be a resource for teams? Why is it just slow pans of your electronics and your LEDs to dubstep? Could you please actually talk through your design and explain what you're doing? Like, what we're looking at on the screen doesn't tell me anything about how these robots were designed or why. Why? What are we doing? If you just want to make a cool robot and you just want to have flashing lights, do that with your team in 6 weeks. Instead, if we're going to be providing a resource for teams, and I'm sorry, Clint, because I can tell you're losing it. If you're going to be providing a resource to team, make it a documentable resource that teams can use going forward into their prototyping process. I really, really like the idea. I mean, Karthik, you and I were both down in 2014 for Build Blitz. I loved the fact that it was walking through a robot build, showing teams what can be done with relatively low effort, not low effort, but a small amount of time, and documenting those things so that you could take it forward. And so that's what I like about these kind of builds and these kind of shows. So that's I think that's we don't want to rag on the idea of providing resources for teams in any way, shape, or form. I wanted to start off with my tiny little upset about reveal videos for RA3D versus technical videos as a resource. But I will let somebody else take some thoughts on RA3D.
Listen, I am a huge opponent to any reveal video showing an electronics board. It drives me nuts when I see a team showcase a Robo Rio, which is mandatory to use during their freaking reveal video. Okay, you use that. I also use that.
Oh my god, it has batteries?
Neat! Jesus. Okay. End of electronics board pan rant. I get it. It looks cool. It's got LEDs. I hate non-functional LEDs in all forms. 100%. Any team I've ever been on can tell you I hate those. The question I want to ask, and you two, especially Karthik, you being a part of the Build Blitz back in 2014, might be able to answer. But if you are an RA3D team, what is your mission statement? What are you trying to do as a team? Whether it's for personal pride, whatever, I don't care. But what is your mission statement? And why are you doing this? Is it trying to help other teams? Is it just, having fun in 3 days? I just want to know what it is.
So, Clint, we're totally on the same wavelength here because that's kind of the points that I wanted to make. So when we did Build Blitz in 2014, I remember, Bex had their own slant on it. Bex, at its core, and I don't work there anymore, is an education company. And we wanted to provide educational resources. And as an educational company, we were uniquely suited because we had people who had written, curriculum that's been put into tens of thousands of schools, working on developing blog posts and such. But I think, so first of all, I'm going to slightly defend the RI3D teams a bit because it's like, man, they're just going to do their own thing, and I think we all three of us kind of agree that we like RI3D for the sake of, hey, this is a education, we want it to be resources for teams. So for teams who are really struggling and can't figure out what to build, that there's a resource there for that. That's kind of what we're looking at this for. And I think some of the RI3D teams really excelled at that. Some shout-outs have to go to the Greenhorns, Snow Problems, the Everybot group, WC Products. The four of them released awesome robots, and they have detailed information on how to do these things. West Coast Products has bill of materials. Everybot's coming out with bill of materials. Snow Problems has documentation coming out everywhere. I mean, all of those guys should send their resumes to Vex to try and get on the education team there, because I'm sure they want people like you who can document solutions that way. They came up with simple robots. But I think some of these teams, they just want to build a robot. Some of these teams still aren't done. There's some teams that started, and I think they just wanted to buy cool hoodies and T-shirts. I think that's what it was. They just wanted to hang out for 3 days, not sleep, order a lot of pizza, wear their hoodies, wear their T-shirts, and then they haven't delivered anything. And that's their prerogative. Some teams just want to do that. And I think it shows because you look at the number of views on some of these videos, and it's hey, there's their RI3D release video. There's 75 views. No one's actually watching. They're doing it for themselves, and I mean, that's cool too. I just think that I'd rather focus my time on the teams who've done this really, really cool stuff. One thing I wanted to shout out is the Compass Alliance, which is a group of FRC teams who are just trying to pool together their resources for awesome outreach. They've done a summary of all the RI3Ds that they could find. They got people, and I was one of the people who kind of judged them and evaluated them. And I think this is a great resource for teams. It's on the screen right now. You can take a look at it. You go to their site, and you get some analysis on what these groups have done, and it really kind of focuses on, hey, this works, and hey, doesn't. But I'm in love with the Robonauts Everybot, because they went out there and said, hey, here's our mission statement. Like Clint said, they came up with a clear mission statement. We want to design a robot that does one thing well, under $1,000, and provide all the resources to team. And it's wicked. It's amazing, and it's just showing the power of dominating the Switch and how well they can do it. And the WC Products robot just does one thing really, really well. Greenhorns did a couple things, but they did them the simplest possible way, and it's just so nice. And I don't know. I think I'm actually kind of happy with Robot in 3 days this year, because there's been 4 or 5 groups who were wicked awesome. There's also 15 who were just it's we're looking at C Rios or Robo Rios and whatever. But I am really happy with these groups stuff. And now I think the challenge is on all of us who actually believe in this stuff to help get the resources out there, because teams who really could use resources aren't checking Chief. They don't follow a bunch of teams on Twitter. So it's about us to the grassroots efforts to try and get as many teams to be aware of these simple solutions. So in week 3 or week 4, when they're struggling, be oh, I can just do a simple jointed arm and a bucket and be better than lots of teams. My last point on Everybot and the really simple RI3D teams, it's going to drive everyone crazy when you go to an event and you see all these teams built complicated robots that aren't as good as Everybot, because the opportunity was there. And I think that Everybot shows by limiting your resources and actually understanding that your resources are limited, you can actually build a better robot. And that's such a valuable lesson for FRC teams to realize, because sometimes having limited resources, if you can understand those limitations, it can actually put you in an advantage over teams who have more resources, because they have more rope to hang themselves. So the Everybot guys from 118, I know Ethan Reed's one of the main ones, who's one of the best Vex builders in history, actually, one of the best VRC teams ever. They came up with this project, and everyone who worked on it, I don't know exactly who did it. It's so cool. And also Greenhorns, No Problems, West Coast Products, shout out RC and his 102 intake wheels on that robot, which is a little bit weird. But that was some cool stuff there. So, Libby, you gave us your mini rant. Do you have anything to follow up with? Otherwise, we can talk about some of the questions.
Yeah, I do, because I got called out in chat, and you guys are right. I am not trying to rant about RI, because they all did, or mostly did, technical walkthroughs as well. My mini rant was specifically about the flashy reveal video, because it just bugs me, and clearly Clint as well. But I really do think you nailed it, right? These are, at the root, these are resources teams can draw from, and that is good. There's nothing wrong with looking at an RI3D robot and saying that's a great place to start. I mean, all of them in those same reveal videos I rant about put that, we did this in 3 days, you have 6 weeks, we know you can do better. And I think that's the root of it, is, it's a great place to start for teams that, like you said, aren't checking chief, aren't following other teams. I just think it's, I think it's really a really cool part of the community that I think has developed over the last 5 years. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. My rant was more about the reveal videos, but I really do appreciate the resources that teams put out, especially when there is all of the specs, all the stuff, when there's a budget, aspect to it. I think that's fantastic. So if you are on an RI3D team, or you are in support of one, and my rant offended you, I am deeply sorry, because I do love the resources, but stop taking videos of your electronics. But let's get to questions.
One last thing that Libby just hit on there, where she said, these teams did this much in 3 days, you have 6 weeks to try and be better. It's okay also not to try and be better, because sometimes if you take a simple robot and then try and add complications, it gets worse. It reminds me of this great story from the Calgary Regional in 2013. There was a team that showed up, and they didn't have a robot. It was one kid. The team was one kid. I don't understand why it was only one kid, but it was just one kid. His name was Herman. And so a whole bunch of teams worked with Herman to get him a drivetrain. And then suddenly Herman had a drivetrain and it was doing well, and was playing defense, and they put a 10-point hang on it. It was good, doing really well. But then some of these teams who weren't very good, it's hey, Herman, let's add a shooter to your robot. It's and they made it worse. He had, it's and so sometimes there's no shame in just doing something super simple, working for a few hours a week, putting it on the field, and playing the game. So, RI3D specific questions and comments. Azathoth, _. I don't know why it couldn't be Azathoth with 1 underscore. I guess Azathoth with 1 underscore.
It was taken.
2. But start with the fact that it apparently takes longer to make a video than build a robot.
Don't put me back on videos. Don't.
We're not going there. We won't.
Brian360 says, do you think the Greenhorns robot will be better or worse than the average week 1 robot? Oh, so much better.
So much better. So much better.
Week 1 robot.
Yeah, I mean, that happens every year, right? Teams overextend, they don't focus, and then they show up to their first event, and they've got nothing, right? They've got 5 mechanisms that work at 10% and none that work at 100.
I'll say this, man. The Greenhorns robot could end up being a top 10 robot in the state of Minnesota. It is good. It is a good robot.
It is. It's solid.
No problems too. Us, those guys. I don't actually know any of them. I've talked to a couple of them here and there, but they did such good jobs. I'm just so impressed by the RI3Ds that came out of Minnesota. So let's do some quick questions from Fun Nation. Libby, you want to start us off with questions?
Yeah, sure. So our first question is from Gorilla from 4639. It's the Robo Spartans. The question is, how do you think refs are going to address launching?
So launching is not defined in the manual, but I think they did that with good reason, because it's something that when you see. I think by specifying the zones where it can happen is really going to solve most of the problems, because I don't think many teams are going to from outside of those zones. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be the big. If teams are pushing the envelope, I think that you can probably train a referee to the difference between dropping something and throwing something. But I think the zones are going to solve most of the problem. Clint, Libby?
I don't think it's going to be a problem at the scale. I think the problem more comes at the switch, where you have to be touching the switch. And, if your team's... And I think even the biggest potential maybe dispute is actually not going to come in teleop, but more likely in auto when teams are trying to stretch the time, right? They're going to barely nick the switch as they launch their cube, and it's going to be a little bit of a hazy situation. During teleop, at least on our team, I'm going to tell my team, smash the switch, make them know by breaking the polycarb, whatever it is, that you're touching it when you launch it. Otherwise, autonomous, I think, is going to be the biggest thing. Teams try to just pass by, barely nick the switch as they drop it in. It's a no-brainer in the scale, because if your bumpers are inside the null territory, you're fine. It's more around the switch. And the MCC, there's, especially from WCP and maybe even Team Orion, if I remember correctly, there's times they launched the cube bin clearly illegally, right? I mean, they're not even close to touching the fence. So
I mean, West Coast Products was doing that for a joke, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's a joke. I don't know, RC. Maybe he's a funny guy. I don't care. He's still going to get a penalty if I'm reffing.
They said on their website that this is illegal. We know it.
Okay, good. I didn't read that, but
I don't know. RC.
Yeah, no. But that's going to be the sticking point all year. It's gonna be kind of like 2016. Remember the definition of crossing. Are you protected? Are you not protected? Are your bumpers still within the barriers? That kind of thing. I think you're going to get into several situations like that this year. But is it a big deal? No, it's not a big deal. Just touch the freaking fence and be done with it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe for anything that's either zone based or game piece interaction based. Make it obvious while you're with your robot's motion. Second question is from TJF from Parallel Universe. That's 1257. So quite a few people feel that this is a game of steal from the best, invent the rest, due to similarities to previous games and game objects in both FRC and FTC. Do you feel that this copying or design inspiration, whichever one you choose, will work for or against teams as we progress in the build season and the season overall? Either one of you wants to take it first.
So I pulled up the Google Analytics on 1114's webpage, and 3 pages spiked over week after kickoff. Like by spiked, I mean like went up by like views. 2015 robot, 2011 robot, 2007 robot, i.e. Intake for rectangular prism, elevator, and ramps. So I think there's definitely a lot of teams who are going to gain inspiration from past robots, and that's always cool. But will say this much. When teams start seeking inspiration from past robots, RI3D and stuff, a lot of really good new ideas go unexplored, or maybe they hit the drawing board, but then they never really get prototyped because it's like, oh, why should I prototype that when I know I can use, there's a 1114 sideswipe intake. We see this in the world of the Vex Robotics competition a lot, where really good ideas go unexplored. So I think that there is a market inefficiency that's created, and some teams who try and do things a little bit differently and some of these ideas and say, hey, yeah, the Poof's intake in 2015 was awesome, the Poof's elevator in 2015, but let me try something a little bit different, might come up with something. And I think, for example, the Everybot group with the over-the-shoulder bucket toss of the cube is one of those things that we hadn't seen before, was a new idea and is really effective. So I think that there's always some value in trying to be creative.
I'm glad you mentioned the Symbot sideswipe intake, because after our 2015 season, Karthik, one of our students that was on our drive team in that year, went and bought your intakes off the IRI auction. And this week, his dad showed up to our build site with the 2 Symbot sideswipe intake arms. So something.
Just get some duct tape and you're good.
We may or may not have already thought about that. So thank you for letting us steal from the best and invent the rest.
We sold it.
That's true. We bought it from you, and now we're gonna keep inventing.
The real winners were the IRI charity fund. So
for sure. Any thoughts, Clint, at all?
I always have a problem with the steal from the best, especially when it's coming from past games, because like if you look at a 2015 intake, you were intaking multiple objects in rapid succession, right? You know, you were trying to build a 5 or 6 stack as fast as you could. This year, you're trying to grab one object, right? You don't need to grab a second one right afterwards, you know? So there's obviously a different game dynamic. Now, whether or not that leads to different, you know, physical mechanisms, that's up for grabs, you know, and teams will explore that on their own. I am a little disappointed to have seen only like 2 intake ideas in this year, and almost all of them copy the sideswipe kind of intake. And I hope teams are reaching out separately from things they're posting online. I'd hate for teams to kind of lock themselves in. But, you know, you have to, anytime you're evaluating this year's game to a past game, you have to understand what's different about the games before you just go ahead and copy. And it was the same thing between 2014 and 2008, right? You can't get game objects that were as similar as that, right? But there was obvious differences in those 2 games. And I'm hoping teams are keeping that in mind as they go through this build season.
That's a really, really good point, Clint. Next question we have are, what are 5 mistakes that teams building ramps should avoid, from Lil Lavery 1712, who may also be the same person as Azathoth _. 5 mistakes that teams building ramps should avoid. I could name all 5, so I'm going to go last. Libby, you want to get some mistakes?
I like that this is a game of guessing all 5. I mean, I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit. I think it's going to be a lot harder to think, and I don't necessarily think it's the right idea for everybody. You know, and that's not a list of 5 things. That's just my one answer to that is really consider whether doing this right and doing this well and doing this like our team, the phrase our team is using, which is idiot proof, is that it's actually within your means to do that correctly.
Clint?
Yeah.
You don't have to give specifics if you don't want to.
I'm not going to, you know, try to totally just trash on ramps, but number one thing teams should keep in mind is the ability for a alliance partner driver to drive onto your ramp, right? Whether it's direction, width, size, whatever it is, make sure that, you know, you're keeping not just the physical partner robot in mind, but also their ability to control it. I think FRC teams in general are surprisingly bad at driving their robots, and I think that will not change in 2018.
So we're going to try and move a little bit faster here, so I'm going to try and go through 5 mistakes really quickly. I think that teams are going to build their ramps too steep. I think they're going to build their ramps too small. I think they're not going to be able to lift. They're going to be designed to lift 2 or none, will not be able to just lift 1 because of center of gravity issues. I think that they're going to be designed so they aren't going to be thinking about sight lines and designing so the driver has the best approach towards the ramp. And did I say just they're going to be too small? Did I say that already? But that's, I guess the other thing is they're not going to realize the amount of wear and tear that these things are going to go through because you're putting an extra 120 pounds of load on it. And ramps just kept falling apart. Oh, and here's another one. They're going to prematurely deploy. As we called in 2007, premature rampulation is going to be a problem where these ramps are going to pop open in the middle of the match. So we have a lot of questions in the queue. We want to take as many of them as we can. So we're trying to do this lightning style. So everyone's just quick answers.
Lightning round?
So,
okay.
Lightning round. So do you think this game is unique in terms of how teams will be able to complete all 3 tasks, or is it the same as every other year where teams overestimate their capabilities? Clint?
100% teams are going to overestimate their capabilities. They should focus on something that's well within their means, and they'll be successful.
Libby?
Yep, same. Everyone thinks they're better than they are, our team included, and just think about what you can do within your own resources. Done.
Agreed. Lots of teams are going to overestimate what they can do. However, the teams who look at every bot are going to, and do stuff like that, are going to really succeed because of it, just like the teams who did pure human loading gears last year. Great question, Brian M. from Team 1360 Orbit Robotics, otherwise known as Celeste. All right, Libby, next question.
All right. So this is Leap from 299 Valkyrie Robotics. What kind of alliances do you think we'll see in early weeks of play, and then like later weeks of play, and then championship? How do we think play is going to change and or escalate?
I think 100% you're going to see a lot more play on the switches in early weeks, and I think the scale will become kind of more one-sided in early weeks, and then in later weeks you'll see more back and forth of the scale and less emphasis on the switches.
I agree with Clint. I will also say that the game is going to be played not very strategically early on. I think as we go along, teams are going to utilize their power-ups in more intriguing ways, saving them for specific points in the match. I think early on, we're going to see some back-and-forth action. I think later on, I think in the middle point of the season, we will definitely see some take an early lead and then play some defense. And then by champs, I think we'll see a new evolution.
Nope. Don't have much to add, so I will move on. Our next question is, what do you think, this is a long one, sorry. What do you think the point differences between winning and losing alliances will be at various, I guess this kind of ties together, at various points in the season? Do you think games are going to be won and lost more by micro or by macro? Minor, couple seconds too late on the power up versus a total prioritization problem, and that comes from Time Bomb from 4682.
Yeah, Time Bomb. I think in early weeks you're just going to see total blowouts. You're going to get to an event. There's going to be a clear top two. You're going to see them take advantage of their switch and their scale and shut you out of your switch. And you're going to see massive scores to very small scores. Later on in the season, I think things will even out. And power-ups will become more important. But who knows? I've been wrong in every season that I've participated in FIRST before, so maybe it'll be this year as well.
Yeah,
I think a lot of matches are going to be decided early in the match by who takes control over a game, one of the scoring areas early, and who forgets to take control of it back.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, the early weeks are just going to be super confusing for a lot of teams. I think there's going to be a complete confusion on what to do with your power-ups and how you can best be benefited by them. So, agree, I think it'll even out as we get through the season, but that happens every season. All right, I think we have some more questions. Karthik, want to take it?
Rapid fire here. I want everyone's answer in less than 5 words for this question. Which wheels do you think have the best grip for a wheeled intake? From Ludwig the Punisher or Ludwig the Punisher?
Flex or compliant wheels?
Yeah, I was going to be sassy, but I won't because I only have 5 words. Something like that. Prototype.
Anti-mark compliant wheels. Our next question. Any recommendations for training student drive coaches? Short answers only, folks.
Lots of practice and practice, especially being confident without being cocky or over-assertive.
Make a playbook, like Libby said earlier. Wear it on your forearm, like quarterback in football.
Finish your robot early and practice as much as you can with realistic situations. Practice against defense. Another question we have is, someone wants to know, what do you think the viability of trying to take control of your opponent's switch is? I'll hit this one first because I think I've touched on it with the every bot robot. It's hugely viable because your opponent has 14 cubes down by your switch through the portals, so they have a huge advantage on you for controlling the switch. If they choose to take advantage of it, it's up to them, but that's a completely viable strategy. Clint, Libby, anything to add?
Agreed.
Yeah, no, spot on. So moving on to another question that we have from the chat. This comes from Electronica1. Sorry. Also, my dog wants to talk. Where did it go? Goodness me. Can teams get away with a fast switch and exchange specialist? Do we think that scale scoring capability is going to be important?
100% scale scoring will decide some qual matches, but don't be afraid to lose qual matches in terms of overall tournament success.
Yeah, scale scoring is important. It's the center of the game. It's a swing. It's very, very important. However, it may not be as important as people think it is.
Okay. This comes from Pierce Klein in chat. How does the RNG debate to the randomness in baseball diameter? How does the RNG debate compare to the randomness in baseball diameter affecting MLB games? I'm out on this one.
So I mean, the thing in Major League Baseball is it hasn't really truly been randomness because it seems like there's been a marked change in the diameter of the ball since the All-Star break of 2016. So it seems to be affecting, and I'm not up on the latest prospective studies to see if there has been some randomness in the balls when they're shipping from different locations or shipping to different locations. But it seems like it's been pretty consistently larger, and that's affected the home run rate. So I don't think it really the RNG stuff applies, but maybe I'm just not up to date on the current readings.
Yeah, I think the RNG is way bigger of a factor in this year's game than the baseball diameter. It's been statistically significantly over the midpoint of the tolerance over the last couple of years. I haven't also kept up on it as much, but I feel like it's more random in this game than it is in baseball.
I'm just impressed that there's a question about baseball as opposed to a question about video games, so I'm thankful for that.
Same, I would expect a World of Warcraft drop rate, but I'm not sure.
Next question. Which alliance wins in a matchup of one Einstein robot and 2 BLTs against 3 MCCs? I don't know what a BLT is.
Brave little toaster.
Oh.
Like a little toaster bot that can't do anything.
Still not hip.
I feel like that's not a great matchup comparison because why does one Einstein robot end up with 2 toasters? Look, that doesn't...
In a qual match.
Yeah, 100% that'll happen in a qual match.
Yeah, true. I'm going with the Everybots.
Yeah, I think if the Everybots play good strategy, they could definitely overpower one Einstein-level robot. But if the Everybots can't take control of the scale, they're in for a world of hurt.
I think this game is more like 2013 and 14, where 3 above-average robots can hammer 1 elite robot with 2 below-average robots, as opposed to a game like 2008 where 1 robot could just shotgun it and just say, screw you, I'm winning this match on my own. So I think that's what the case is. My early thought, I'd say 75% confident. Can you briefly describe what you think the Einsteins will look like? How will it be different than week 1? The sun's going to be in my eyes, so I'm not sure.
Only in Houston.
Sun rises and sets every day, and we still get surprised by it on the field. I mean, I think there's a totally... the same way that Einstein looks different from week 1 every year, in that the level of play has scaled very intensely, and people are understanding the game at a different level. That's the short answer.
The biggest difference I see is at the highest level, cubes become a finite resource. At the lowest level, cubes are essentially infinite. And I think that'll be a major factor at the Einstein level.
Libby, you want to take the next couple?
Yeah, sure. So one of them is, please tell Libby to give her dog a treat. No, because he made noise. Oh, sorry. Next question.
Someone call the Humane Society. Jeez.
Sorry. So the next question is, which events are on your must-see list for week 1 and 2? I unfortunately am not going to get a ton of time to watch webcasts because we are competing in both week 1 and week 2. We're at Palmetto Regional and our first district in Mount Olive. So y'all are going to have to keep up on the other events for me, but I want to know where you want to see the streams.
Yeah, I'm going to do a shameless plug here real quick for the Western Region recap. In the Western Region this year, we've got Arizona North week 2, which is absolutely the most stacked early regional I think I've ever seen. You've got tons of teams from California coming over to Arizona. It's going to be absolutely the event to watch the first couple weeks of the season. And on the first updates now, Western Region Recap, we'll have the preview, the coverage, all of that for you right here.
To be completely honest, Ontario's in districts now, so I only kind of pay attention to Ontario. But week 1, the Durham College event, 610 will be playing at that event. They the last couple of years have been really good at building simple robots and playing smart strategy and just cycling people to death. And this game's kind of built towards that, so I'm excited to see what 610 does at that event. Someone wants to, 20 Robe Dog wants to know, can you potentially build a drone for the game? I cannot, no.
No, me neither. Not my skill set.
Just stop.
Michael 1, ooh. How do you think scouting is going to change this year? Especially because score is now time-based instead of per piece. I actually have some serious thoughts on this. I think that instead of teams tracking how many objects a robot scores, they should be tracking cycle time. So how much time it takes them from approaching the object to release the object. I think that was something teams should have done with Gears last year as well. Because, for example, like 610, I'll use them as an example again. They were the best gear scoring robot possibly in the world. Their alliances would hit 4 rotors so fast, their gear numbers wouldn't be super high, especially at district championships and at worlds. So what you really wanted to watch was how long did it take for them to get from landing at their loader station to releasing the gear at the peg. And so I think something similar for cubes this year might.
100% agreed. I think last year was a first foray into how truly important cycle time was with the discrete scoring last year. I think it only gets more important this year, and I think teams should keep an eye on that as opposed to just average cubes scored.
Yeah, I think you guys, have nailed it. I think there's a really nice space for not only tracking what the teams are doing and what their cycle time is, but, we always have on our team, we have our 6, and then we have usually one of our scouting leads taking just other notes. It's a lot more qualitative than quantitative, but that's a great place for that person is like, okay, well, this was their cycle time. And then what did they choose to do in this other time? Something else we're going to be keeping track of is as much as we can, which is going to be so hard, especially if the field electronics don't work, is when teams play particular power-ups and what they're going for in the match. It's just, this is going to be a year for the extra side notebook in addition to the scouting sheet, at least on our team. I think there's just so much information to take in that scouting is going to be very careful and maybe a little bit chaotic as well. Moving on, we have 2 more questions. We have another one from Electronica 1. Do you think we'll see triple climbs for the finals of Einstein, or will it be like 2013 where no one climbed to the top for finals?
I think you'll definitely see climbs because of the time-based scoring system. There's just nowhere to find 90 extra seconds in the match, right? Whereas in 2013, you could score the last few last few discs and make up some of those points. This year, it's literally time that matters. If you can climb quickly at the end, there's no other way to make up for those points. So I'm thinking on Einstein, we're definitely going to see either triple climbs or we'll see some double climbs with Levitate, and you won't see teams just neglecting the end game like you did in 2017.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. As much as I've talked about how difficult climbs and lifting and all that sort of stuff is, there's nothing in this game that's as hard as the 30-point climb was in 13. That's probably the hardest challenge that there's, end game challenge ever.
What I think is our last question is, again, from Azathoth _. Do cubes ever become a finite resource before the plates are too crowded to use reliably?
100%. That happens. No questions.
Yeah, so like the plate crowding is an issue. I think it's an issue that a lot of teams probably haven't realized yet because they don't have enough game pieces to crowd a plate yet. But you can get probably 6 on there reliably before you're starting to stack on top. If you put 6 on every plate, that's 36, and you fill up 2 vaults, that's 18, that's 54, that leaves you with 6 cubes. And so we're still in limited resources at that point. But I think, part of the evolution of this game and part of an extra level of that'll be a separator between teams is the teams that can place the 7th, 8th, and 9th on cubes on a plate, especially if we're talking about MCC bots that can unload a portal onto a switch, like with 7 cubes in 30, 45 seconds. Or how are you going to get more on there? What's going to happen? So I think plates becoming crowded is an issue, and I think cubes becoming a finite resource will become an issue at the very highest levels of play only.
I think that about covers it for questions. So we're going to wrap up here. So thank you to everyone who is helping make the show. If you like what we do here on Fun, all we ask is that you tell others about the show and invite them to watch the next show so they can get some more FRC in their life, as if we don't have enough during build season.
Clint, thank you for being on the show. Good luck with 16-19 this year. Do you have anything you want to talk about before you go?
No, as far as 16-19 goes, we're just grinding through the build season. We're competing week 2, 4, and 5. As far as first updates now go, keep your eyes out on the region recaps that'll be taking place as the competition season gets going. Me personally, I'll be covering the Western region, which includes everything from Colorado, Arizona, Idaho, all the way out to California and the Pacific Northwest. We've got great analysts covering all the regions across the globe. And we'll be doing a show pretty much every Monday during the competition season.
I think Region Recap's going to be really, really fun this year. I know I'm helping out with the East side as well. So good luck this season, Clint, and thank you so much for being on the show. Our next show from Fun is going to be Funanalysis, which is next Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you click that follow button. That's the heart up in the corner to stay on top of all of Fun's shows. And a big thank you to all of the show's subscribers and those who have either donated to the stream or given bits in the chat to keep Fun going. We truly could not do it without you.
One last plug I want to throw in there. We talked about them earlier, but check out the resources the Compass Alliance has put out, especially with the summaries of the robot in 3 days. And again, everyone who's kind of watching these shows, you might not need these resources, but there's lots of rookies, lots of teams who are struggling out there who need these resources. So point them in that direction, and they'll help you out. On behalf of myself, Libby, our producer Tyler Olds, working behind the scenes, we want to thank all of you for tuning in. Thanks to Clint for coming on the show with his special showcase of being candid. And thanks to all our moderators in the chat. If you are watching live, we'll be in the chat for the next few minutes to keep talking. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on Fun, and we will talk to you then. Good luck, everyone.